Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Grace Again podcast, an ongoing conversation with the people of grace at the intersection of church and life and culture and theology. This is part 2 of beta episode number 9, recorded on Friday, October 21st, 2016. And in this episode, I continue my conversation with my friend Nick Walker about the ingredients of a good song for congregational worship singing. Let's join the conversation already in progress. You mentioned a word a few minutes ago in talking about melody, music, singability. You said the word, it needs to be somewhat predictable. And I thought, wow, that's an interesting, here we are on this continuum, this tension, because on the one hand, predictability sort of kills creativity. Or predictable is sort of, in some people's minds, sort of the enemy of expression and creativity and spontaneity. And, but on the other hand, you really can't have music and singing without predictability. Think about it. As musical and artistic as a song is, it also has order. It has some agreed upon things that are very predictable, like tempo and the actual notes that are sung in the melody, the actual chords that create the background feel and progression of the song. And so there's this tension of, no, we've got to be predictable to some degree and in certain ways, or we're not going to be able to sing this together at all. There's no unity around this song if there's not some sense of predictability, and yet we don't want to be so, I don't know, I'm just kind of asking, if we're so predictable, that there's just no artistic expression, or I don't know. Is this a fair? Am I making a mutually exclusive comparison that's not good, or just the whole predictability thing? If I've learned a song, and if you've learned a song, and we all kind of know the song in a certain predictable way, and I decide to next Sunday lead that very song in a very different way, well, it's going to be a solo, is it not? It might be a good solo, it might be fine, but it's not going to be a song that we're all singing to. Is that true?
Yeah, this we're getting into stuff that for songwriting classes.
Yeah,
here, trying to be predictable, and you're right. That is kind of a dirty word when it comes to creativity, but let me give an example. We're talking about sometimes simple things. Let me go back to that song, "Here's My Heart."
Okay.
And just very simple. I am found, I am yours, I am loved, I'm made pure, I have life, I can breathe, I am healed, I am free. You see the predictability of that rhythm. Those three syllable things. Every truth that you're singing is 3 syllables. Okay, that's pretty predictable. But it would be disastrous if you tried to veer, too far away from that. I am found. I am really yours, God. I am loved by you so much that it engages my heart. I'm made pure by your Holy Spirit. It is like, oh, okay, that's not predictable, but that's not very good. That's pretty hard to sing as well. So you're right. It's sort of the predictability, the rules. There are certain sort of songwriting rules that are often broken. But you better have a pretty good reason to break the rules. So that's what I'm talking about. It's something as simple as that, predictability. But that's what makes music, really. Is the predictability of it. The idea that the song is starting somewhere and going somewhere else, but it's going somewhere else, and it can take us as well. So it has to be a little bit predictability for us to kind of go with that song.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to take a group of people to the same place and along the journey together. in direct proportion to the steps that are quite predictable, as opposed to if you try to go together in a song somewhere, and if you add up the components of the song, like melody notes and tempo and rhythm of singing those notes, and they're all different. Everybody sings something different. Everybody sings what they want to sing. They're kind of, they're wise in their own eyes kind of heart attitude of, they've got this figured out and they know how to sing it better. Well, it's like we're not going to get to the same place. And even if we end up trying to get there, we're not going to get there together. So I think there's a degree, there's an argument to be made that predictability is not our enemy, it's our friend. It's and yet, I don't mean to say predictability in the sense of stale, non-expressive, non-artistic. So somewhere in there, even in the subtleties of the song, Nick, because you were actually demonstrating a minute ago what I would call some sort of exaggerated, gross examples by adding lyrics that don't even fit the rhythm of the triplets that are being sung there, or whatever, how that was playing out. I even think that even if you took those lyrics, "I am found, I am yours," and in that song, and even if you sang those three notes differently, it takes away of the power of the unity of, if it's "I am found" and I decide to say "I am found," differently, yeah. It doesn't keep us unified. And so the predictability of even in the rhythm of when those notes in the subtleties of them are sung, I think contributes to maybe what is a good worship experience versus a great one. Like, let's move toward even greater unity, because I'm confident that I'm actually singing with everybody else, yeah, versus I'm actually competing with everybody else. What do you think?
Yeah, I tell you, that's so important, because when we sing together as a body, that does something a little bit different than when we just sing alone. I mean, really, the best times of worship really should be on our own, between us and God. But there's something special that happens when we come together as a body to sing as one. God shows up. The Lord inhabits the praises of His people, and so there's something unifying. There's something warm and fuzzy, for want of better terms, of belonging, of praising God together as a church. It's just something that you can't get all by yourself, and so we do have to be unified. In like you say, in the rhythm, "I am found, I am yours," and melody too. It goes, "I am found, I am yours, I am loved." Oh, that's a little bit different. "I'm made pure," and then it repeats itself. "I have life, I can breathe, I can breathe, I am healed, I am free." So it's a little bit different, but different enough that we can go there, and same enough that we can all go there together without any problem.
Yeah.
It's unified is important. And there's another song that we do that I really love, called "Sovereign Over Us," and for one reason or another, there's a line in the song that a large portion of the congregation has learned the melody wrong, and it's not a huge deal. Because half the church is singing that melody, so they're unified.
Yeah.
But it's let's see. Your plans are still to prosper. No, that's not it. The verse. "There is strength within the sorrow. There is beauty in our tears." And then the next line is, "And you meet us in our mourning." But so many people go, "You meet us in our mourning," to duplicate the first line. Well, it's a little bit different.
Yep.
It's a little bit different. It's not that different, but it is different enough you go, "Oh, that's kind of creative." Yeah. It's not the same thing. It's not, repetition is good, but if you're singing the same thing too much, it's not quite as engaging as something a little bit different. So so that's one that's maybe not quite as predictable, and because it's not as predictable, a lot of people want to go to that original melody. You meet us in our morning. Nope, instead of you meet us in our morning, which is the correct way of doing it.
Yeah.
So
correct. Correct in the sense of the way the artist who wrote it initially wrote it, and then that leads into we tend to sing that what we thought we heard in the beginning when we first learned a song. A group of people, and human nature is that, okay, if I'm going to sing this, I'm going to try to sing it the way I think it's correct, and I thought I heard it that way the first time. And if you do that, teach it the wrong way or not correct that soon enough, then hey, it's hard to turn the ship around. That's been our experience, right?
Yeah, it really is. Every time we do that song, I really get down on the microphone, and you meet us in our morning.
Yeah, right.
But I still hear people going morning. Oh no.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
they're worshiping. Their hearts are engaged, and that's the musician in me says, oh, sing the melody this way, but then the bigger picture is, are you having a connection with Jesus? That's what counts.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what counts. But that's not exactly the question that we're discussing here. We're actually discussing the ingredients of a good song that helps with congregational singing, and what we're addressing here is that there really does need to be some degree of consistency, predictability, and the musical melody of it needs to be within the range of singability, whether it be the key and the octaves themselves, or just the complexity of difficulty in the melody versus a singability for a group of people. So this is really good. We have time for maybe one more, and I wanted to offer this one and ask your input on this one, Nick, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
What role should and does the musicians and the musicianship and the accompaniment that is being played and presented, what role does that play in a good experience and a congregational group of people actually singing? Like, what I'm getting at is, without answering the question too much, is that on one end of the spectrum, I feel like, if the musicians aren't in sync and not playing well with excellence of some sort, then why would I want to and be naturally drawn into joining them if I'm confused and actually my ears are hurting and I'm actually not, I don't feel like I'm observing and sensing and seeing and hearing something of great beauty. It's more of a cacophony than a harmony kind of thing, And yet on the other side, boy, if it's actually too good or presented in such a way in the arrangement of the whole thing that it's almost like designed for me to listen to instead of sing with, because I'm enjoying just listening and in awe of the beauty and the arrangement here of these musicians and their talent and their skill, which is nothing wrong. So what do you think about that tension, or what do you think, what would you say about the role of the musicians, whether it be a solo pianist or guitarist or a whole group, a band that's playing?
Yeah, and I want to try to avoid that phrase, too good. I hear that sometimes, oh, those guys are too good. They need to not be so good. But because I believe in excellence.
Sure.
I think that's scriptural. And you look back at the musicians in the temple, and the scripture tells us they were good. The scripture says, play skillfully to the Lord. So we're called upon to be the best musicians we can be. But that's not really the problem. The problem is not too good. The problem is good for the wrong reasons. We've probably all been to a church at some time in our life. I know I have, where you go in and you go, those guys are good. Those are hot musicians. Whoa, listen to them play. But it didn't draw me in to want to participate. As a matter of fact, it did just the opposite, as you mentioned. More of a just, oh, I want to listen to this. But the thing is, I believe that they could take that skill and that talent and use it to draw us in. It's a matter of it's a matter of focus. Who are we focusing on? And so there are certain things that we do at Grace Community Church, and certain things that we don't do. We use our talents and our abilities to play the best we can in order to not be distracting to the congregation. If we're playing lousy, that takes away, that distracts people. It's like, oh, did you hear that, Mabel? You're not going to worship if you're being distracted by wrong notes or rhythms that aren't together, if we're not playing together. So we try to be unified. We try to play well in order to get out of the way. There's a way to be so good and so tight as a band that you can actually get out of the way and let God do His work. But you can also be so good and so tight as a band that it gets in the way. And so the trick is to try to find that way to make it easy for people to worship without being distracted, either by bad playing or by good playing. We don't do guitar solos in our worship songs. There was, even though they might be on the record. I remember one time we introduced a song and it had a guitar solo, and this was back when we had this electric guitar, so it could really play. And I say, I'm sorry, but we're not going to do that. It's like, oh man, that's my moment to soar, man. Come on, let me play. That's not what we do here. That's not what we're about. We're not going to focus on your guitar playing. We're going to focus on God. We're going to use your guitar playing to focus on God. And so it's just a kind of a way of first thinking about it, and then, okay, if that is our purpose, then what are we going to do? How are we going to use our skills to help people focus?
Yeah, and it seems, as you describe it in different ways, Nick, it seems that there is a fine line. It is not always an easy discerning difference between what instruments and what playing of certain instruments truly are a distraction and kind of out of bounds and all about the person and the player versus how to use the instruments in such a way that sort of sets the table and, let's come to the feast and let's worship God together. Instruments put together in an arrangement whereby it invites much singing, not just sit back, listen, spectator, but it invites me to want to sing and to join in the singing. Do you think, and let me step over into a little bit more controversial, generational kind of area, do you think that the decibel volume in an arena or a worship sanctuary is related at all to the audience's singing or not singing? Do you think it impacts whether an audience actually sings or not? Or do you think it's a generational thing like that is typically spoken and said? What has been your experience of your own opinion? I mean, you started out by saying that, this is not sort of the absolute truth on all this. This is your opinion, my opinion, and our observations and our experience of this. What do you think about the age-old, culture wars of decibel volumes in a sanctuary?
Well, it is cultural. And I'm not talking just age here. There is some element of that, old and young, but it is cultural, and you kind of have to say, okay, what is the culture of our church? You look at the age span that we have at Grace Community Church, but you also look at what is our collective background? And of course, in a church like ours, those backgrounds are going to be very different. But there might be enough things in common to the background that we can use those to our advantage. we also look at our building, where our environment, our physical environment. Um, you know, there is a time and place for high volume, high energy, and but you can't do what you can do in the Gwinnett Arena at Grace Community Church.
Yeah.
And I remember one time after a Promise Keepers conference at Phillips Arena, one of the men came to me and said, "Man, I wish we could have worship like that at Grace Community Church."
Yeah.
And I had to look him in the eye and said, "We'll never have worship like that at Grace Community Church, because that's Phillips Arena.
Yeah.
That's big.
Yeah.
There's just we're talking volume. We're talking about bass that rattles in your chest. But that's a whole different environment. So it's hard to bring one environment into another environment. It's hard to bring one culture into another culture. So these are questions we kind of have to deal with. What is our environment? What is our culture? Who are our people at Grace Community Church? Yeah. And the thing is, the good news is our people are very different, and the bad news is our people are very different. Yeah. So it becomes maybe more of a challenge, even in a church like Grace Community Church, than it would be maybe in a church where the average age is 30 or younger, or
the average age was all within a decade of each other. It doesn't matter which age. It's easier to set the dB and the volume level. Those are excellent thoughts. I
was going to say though, but you do have to have diversity. I think this goes back to engaging our hearts, not just with truth, but also with the melody and rhythm, and dynamics plays a part in that as well. So that's why we play some songs softly. That's why we play some songs louder. That's why we may play a song softly in the beginning and loud at the end, because there are certain things that are going to engage our souls musically, with those volume dynamics. And so it's not just we're gonna play soft or we're gonna play loud. We're gonna play soft and loud. How soft are we gonna play? How loud are we gonna play? Those are other questions. But in order to be not just musically pleasing, but also to really engage us and want us to sing, there has to be enough diversity, even in the volume. Of the songs we sing. Yeah.
So what you're saying is, to wrap up this last answer here about musical instruments and the music accompaniment itself, the volume and the diversity of that volume, even within a worship service or even within one song, does play into and affect and helping or hindering a congregation actually singing with us, with the group. The volume plays a part, and the musicianship and the excellence of the skill of those musicians and the singers. Absolutely. Yeah. I really, really appreciate your answers. Closing thoughts. One other thing, Nick. What else do you want to share with us before we wrap up?
Well, one more thing about that, and that is that. What I love, this goes back to the very first thing I said in our conversation here. I love to hear people sing. I love to hear those around me engaged in worshiping God. And if the music's too loud, you can't do that. And so you do feel like an individual, singing. I can't hear anybody else. I can barely hear me, but I want to hear other people, because again, there's something special about worshiping God together as a body, and we got to hear one another do that, and that a lot of things play into that, not just the volume of the band, but the acoustics of the room, whether the people around you are engaged. So there's a lot of things that come together, but when they do come together, where we can hear one another, and really we're sort of encouraging one another as we sing by listening to others sing around us. We're drawn more into worship, I think, by that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think this has been a very important conversation, not only encouraging to me, and I hope that those who listen to it can benefit from it, but I think the subject matter is important. It's not irrelevant, and in part, in a big way, because of what you just said, we want to be a singing church. We want to have songs that help us to sing because we don't want to have a brand of Christianity that's entirely private. We want to understand that what Jesus called his church to is to be a people of faith, a community of faith, followers and a body of Christ. And so I can come together, but if all I can hear if I don't sing, that I don't feel like I'm really contributing. But if I am singing, but all I hear is myself kind of in between my two ears, I can't even really hear my audible sound. I don't think that's good. And a step further is, and even more powerful, that we desire, and that is that I not only am hearing myself, but I am hearing everyone else singing. It's kind of like in my mind, the Seattle Seahawks have the 12th man, man on the field, the fans, right?
Right.
It's kind of like it should not be only about the person on stage. It should not be only about the person in the seat as an individual. It should not be just the instruments that are being, performed. There is something even extra about the collective vocal choir of the congregation that exhorts and encourages me as I sing, but also hear others singing. And so that's what I really appreciate when you and other worship leaders will present the volume and the music dynamic in such a way for certain times, but then at other times that music kind of fades to the background even more, and the instrument of all the voices just is a beautiful encouragement and in ministry to one another. And ultimately, it's not just to one another. It's not just horizontal. Ultimately, we're talking about all of this being an aroma to our God that smells good and sweet, and it's a good aroma. So anyway, I just so appreciate the substance of the conversation, Nick. Do you have any closing thoughts before we wrap up and say goodbye?
Yeah, I mean, that's what you said there is really the heart of it. God is the audience. In our worship service, the people on stage are not the performers. The entire church is the performer, and we do want to make a sweet, sweet sound in God's ear because He's the one who showed up, and Jesus gave His life for our worship, so He could have a people set apart to worship Him, and that's why we exist, and that's why we meet every Sunday.
Yeah, amen, absolutely. And it's not only a people set apart for Him that still remain on this earth, but the reality is when we gather together at any given time, we are joining a chorus of saints that have gone before us. Hebrews 12 says, because of the great cloud of witnesses that are in heaven already looking down upon, and they're already worshiping and singing and going about their life of on the other side, we are joining a great cloud of witnesses. It's not just about the Christians on the earth right now, and it's definitely not just about the Christians that are in their room with us when we sing. And so I get so encouraged by knowing that and remembering that. Well, Nick,
absolutely.
Thank you so much. I've really benefited from this. I look forward to future podcasts together where you and I can take other subjects that relate to worship and church life, and hopefully encourage one another and encourage the body, because there's been many topics and through the years that you and I have engaged on that I sometimes leave our conversations going, wow, I think others could benefit from not because we're all wise, but because we just enjoy engaging and encouraging one another and sort of digging up some of these things and turning over the soil and chewing on it a little bit. And so, Nick, thank you for joining me. Look forward to another conversation, and may God use the conversation for His glory.
Always appreciate the opportunity. Thanks so much, John.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us on the Grace Again podcast. If you're looking for a family of faith in Marietta, Georgia, Please join us this Sunday at 11 o'clock for our worship gathering, or visit us on the web at gracechurchmarietta.org. We are a fellowship of followers of Jesus on a mission to love God and love people as we help others become passionate followers of Jesus Christ, all to the glory of God. I look forward to continuing our conversation on the next episode of Grace Again.